Okay, what's going on everybody? Today we're going to be doing a tutorial on how to letter comics in Clip Studio Paint. This is the definitive version of how to letter comics in Clip Studio Paint. You'll never need another tutorial ever again because I'm so professional. Just kidding. I'm not a professional letterer. I do have a few tips and tricks for you guys, and I do know how to letter comics in Clip Studio Paint though, so follow along. Alright, I got my little display here going. I'm going to open up Clip Studio Paint. Before we actually get into doing anything in Clip Studio Paint, I'm going to go and show you guys a little resource. And if you're not familiar with this website, highly recommend. 10 out of 10 recommend. There are millions upon millions of fonts here that you can download. Not always for free, but always for personal use and sometimes for commercial use as well. So the website that we're going to go to is dafont.com. Dafont.com. It sounds kind of funny. Sounds like it might be a fake website, but it's not. It's freaking fantastic. And we're going to go straight up here because there's a bunch of categories that you can go through up at the top. We're going to click on comic because there's one specific font here that I really like called Anime Ace. The reason I like this one is because it looks a little bit more hand lettered. There's a lot on here that you could choose from, and I'm sure that there's way more options out there that you could choose from that might even be better than Anime Ace, but just for the sake of doing this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and download Anime Ace, okay? Now, I've downloaded this before. You just click on the zip file. Obviously, I've downloaded it a bunch of times, but whenever you open it up, you'll have two files here. Now, obviously, I'm on Mac, but on PC, it's going to be the same. You have the OT and the TT. Now, I am not an expert on how these files and fonts work. I just use the OT. If somebody could comment down in the comment section the difference between the OT file and the TT files, that would be fantastic. I am clueless on that, but I just use the OT files to add into Clip Studio Paint. So, and in Procreate and Photoshop, all of these fonts work universally, so it's fantastic. So we've got our three different ones here. We have the bold, BLD. We have the italic, and we have the regular. Now, depending on what font you get, they're all going to be different. Some of them might only have one. Some of them might have 5. This one has 3. Okay? So we've got our 3 Anime Ace fonts downloaded just for the sake of the tutorial. Okay? But even though Clip Studio Paint has a ton of fonts in it already, preloaded, it's good to go out and spread your wings a little bit, broaden your horizons. And I like to look at all kinds of different resources. So, alright, let's go ahead and go back to Clip Studio. We're going to click Draw. And once we have it open, we're going to click Illustration here. Now, mine's already set to 11 by 17 because that's the size I usually work in because I do comic pages. I typically work traditionally with comic pages, so I pencil and ink traditionally and scan them in. So I'll show you guys here in a second a page that I've worked on. Now my resolution is going to be at 600. Your bare minimum for print should be 300. Industry standard is probably 300. 600 is probably the best one, I think, in my personal opinion. But if you're just doing webtoons and stuff like that, 72 DPI is perfect for your internet viewing pleasure, because on the internet you can't get past 72 DPI. So there's that. So we're going to open this up, 600 DPI. I have it on color. It really doesn't matter right now because for the sake of lettering I'm just doing everything in black and white. But we're going to click OK, and we have our blank slate here, and I'm going to go to File, Import, Image, and I'm just going to pick one of my recent pages that I've done. This was right after it was scanned in. I've already lettered this and colored this and everything, and it's already in our Ashcan. Shameless plug for The Last Ghost comic book, by the way. You guys should check it out. I'll plug the link down below, alright? I'm going to go ahead and resize this. Obviously, you can still see all the blue line and stuff on here. I didn't get rid of this or anything yet. And for the sake of the tutorial, we don't need to worry about that, okay? Now there's 4 tools that you really need to worry about here in Clip Studio Paint for lettering. Okay, the first one is the most necessary, and that's the comic tool right here. This is where you're going to find all your speech bubbles, your comic or your speech tails, all the different sub-tools and tool properties that you need to create your speech bubbles. You also need to worry about your text tool, and that's going to be to add your lettering inside of your speech bubbles. You need to worry about the operation tool, which is just to basic maneuver your images and things like that, make them larger, skinnier, taller, fatter, whatever the case might be. And then we need to worry about our correct line tool. We'll get to that here in a second. Right now I'm going to go ahead and go to our comic tool. Now there's a bunch of different sub-tools that we have on here, and you can go ahead and play around with them. I'm not going to show you all of them just for the sake of time. I don't want to take up all your time doing this, but let's say that you want to create, they basically all work the same. You just click and drag, but there's different styles of our balloons here. There's two that I really like, well, three that I really like, and those are sort of my go-to, and I'll show you those. Here's your rounded balloon. This is your most basic shape of a balloon. You just click and drag, and boom, you have a balloon, and it goes into a layer over your images, okay? So it automatically creates a new layer here for you in Clip Studio Paint. This is my imported image, this was the transparent layer, and then this is the paper white layer underneath everything. Okay, so once you have that, you'll notice that my border around it is pretty thick.
Damn, boy, he's thick, boy!
Okay, I like a thick border, like triple C thick border around my speech bubbles, okay? But let's say you don't like that, okay? Say you don't want such a huge or thick border. What we're going to do is we're going to go to our tool properties here. We're going to scroll down and we're going to look at brush size. Mine's at 43 points. We're going to go ahead and drop that down to maybe 10, just for the sake of the tutorial. I'm going to click Command Z. On PC it's going to be Control Z. And just to undo what we did, and I'm going to go ahead and click and drag to make another speech bubble. And you'll see that this border here is much less thick, okay? It's much thinner. And that's just how you would go about making your speech bubble. It's just click and drag, very simple. There's another style of balloon that I really like called the rough rounded balloon. It gives you a different feeling to just like maybe what the character might be saying, a little bit more grittiness, maybe it's a dark evil ambiance or like a medieval thing like what we've got going on here in this situation with this person in prison. So this is actually the style speech bubble I chose to letter these. So once we've got those kinds of bubbles down, there's a third one that I really like to use, and rectangle balloons are really commonly used for narration. If you have a narrator to your piece, I would recommend using a rectangle balloon for the narrator because it differentiates between who's on the screen actually speaking or who's in the panel speaking and the person that might be narrating the story or whatever the case might be. And again, that's just a click and drag kind of tool. And it can be however big you want it to be. Again, if you don't like that thin of a line, you can go down here to brush size, bump it up to 40 or whatever the case might be, and we can go ahead and add it in there. To me, that's a little too thick, so maybe I'm going to go down to like 25, and that looks pretty good to me, personally. Okay? And the other thing that I want to show you guys is the balloon tail, because this is the second part to creating a speech balloon, right? You can't just have random bubbles and not know who's saying it. Okay, you got to have a balloon tail pointing to the person speaking. So we're going to go ahead and click on balloon tail, and what we want to do here is we'll click once, we'll drag it out, click again, and this one gives a little curve to it. Okay, so if I want to curve it around here, I can. That would look really ugly. I don't know why you would do that, but you could do that. Or you could come up here and just drag it out a little bit. Say it's coming from that prisoner. Okay? And then we're going to go ahead and click enter whenever we have it how we like it. Okay? So again, just to reiterate here, we're going to click once, click again, drag a little bit, but don't click again. and click enter, and you have a little speech tail or balloon tail that comes to the person that's speaking. Okay? If you want your balloon tail to be a little bit thicker, go to tool property and click width of tail and just increase it by dragging. Click Command Z, and then you can come down here and do it again. Okay? I think that's a little bit long for the balloon tail. I kind of like my balloon tails to be shorter and have the speech balloon actually pretty close to the person speaking. But just for the sake of making this, this is how we make the balloon tail. Okay? Now, let's say you have this style balloon down here. You can actually go ahead and click right here and click again and then hit enter, and it follows the same pattern that you already had for that previous speech balloon. So that's kind of nice. I think they were really intuitive with making these tools in Clip Studio Paint. And not only that, but these are actually tied together now. Like, you can't separate really the tail from the speech balloon. And not only that, but it's on the same layer. Okay? So everything sort of just stays connected in Clip Studio Paint. There's a lot of things that I really like about this program. Okay, so say we want to resize our balloon. Okay, we're going to go to the operation tool, and if we want to resize one, we'll just click on one of them, and we can make it taller or skinnier. We can make it fatter and shorter. It's the basic functions of manipulating images in any kind of program ever existed on computers. So it's pretty intuitive. It's not difficult. You'll just click away. Okay, that's how that works. But if you really want to like mess with the shape of your balloon, this is where this tool comes in handy. You'll go to the correct line tool. Okay, and when you click on this or hover your mouse over it, you're going to see all these different anchor points here that you can adjust individually. Now, I will warn you with this tool, it can be quite frustrating because this works like the pen tool in Illustrator. And if you've never used the pen tool in Illustrator, you have a point and it has two anchor points. And depending on how those anchor points work in the program is what kind of angle you will get moving your line around in Clip Studio Paint. So let me go ahead and show you guys how this works. You can click here, and this actually is hiding it. And you can't really see it, but there's actually 3 points that are going to be here, okay? You have that point, you got this point, and then you have this point right here. And so you can create new anchor points and really go in and manipulate your speech bubble however you like, and you'll just move these along. And so say you want like a little bit more squarish balloon or something like that, you could totally do it using this tool. You just come in and manipulate stuff a little bit. Okay. But that's how the correct line tool works. I find that I'm very privy to this tool. I like it quite a bit. It takes a little bit more work, but it can actually add a little bit more personality to your speech bubbles, which is what makes it really nice. Okay, I'm going to Command Z all that because I was just doing it for the sake of the tutorial. And we're going to go back to our typical balloon oval shape, ellipse shape. Let's get into the text, okay? Now, if we go to our text, it's going to automatically fill in your tool property for your font, Lucida Grande Regular. Okay, I don't know who named that, but it's kind of funky. It's going to also automatically populate 30 font, which is crazy huge. Unless you have somebody like yelling or there's an onomatopoeia in your panel, you don't really want to use font that big. And even then, that's kind of crazy big. So we're going to go ahead and type something. I'm going to type, I can't type, hello there. He's turning into Obi-Wan Kenobi. Okay, hello there. But if we look at this, and to be honest, if we scroll back, this font looks terrible. It looks totally out of place, doesn't really mesh with the vibe of the page. It looks very modern, where we have like a really antiquated scene here, a really dirty and kind of grungy scene. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, which is why I said that we needed to download some more fonts. So we're going to go ahead and go to our font bar here and just click on it anywhere on this little bar. And we're going to click Add Font from Files. And we're going to highlight all three and click Open. And when you do that, it's going to automatically select the Anime Ace, one of them. I already imported mine, so it's already in there. I'm going to click Cancel, and I'm going to scroll all the way up because there's so many fonts here in Clip Studio Paint. And I'm going to click my Anime Ace. Okay, if I can find it. There it is. I personally like the Anime Ace Italic. I'm a big fan of that one. So I'm going to go ahead and, whoops. And I'm going to click Command Z on all of this. And now all fonts are a little bit different, especially in size. So if maybe you have a font that's a little bit bigger, we'll size it down. But typically you want to have Comics font to be around 10 to 13. And that's pretty readable for the audience that you're trying to pull in, okay? They're going to find that a lot more readable than, like, say, font 0.2 size or something like that. So okay, and for this scene, I'm going to go ahead and use font size 11, okay? So I'm just going to type some random gibberish in here. This has actually nothing to do with the scene that's going on, but I'm just going to type, and let me zoom in just a little bit so you guys can see. Hello there. I'm glad you stopped by. I wasn't expecting you. I don't know. Just something really dumb. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and now it'll always keep it on one line. So you have to adjust based off how you want it to fit inside your bubble. And the way I do that is I click here on, after hello there, I'll click enter. Oh, and there's one thing I forgot. You always want to have your font inside your bubble to be center aligned. Okay, always, always, always center aligned. I don't know if that's a rule or what, but it's the one that looks best inside the bubble, and you can form the bubble to fit around the shape of the text really nicely, and that's how that works. Okay, so I'm gonna do this. Now you could shape this up a little bit differently. For example, I could put this down. Actually, I wouldn't put that down there. I could put that down there and bring this back up, and then put I wasn't, and then expecting you down there. I wouldn't do that either. I would put you down there if I did it like that. Because what I'm trying to get is like the text to have some sort of oval shape to it. And you can kind of see that that's what I'm going for. Because what you want to do is make it match the shape of the bubble behind it. And when we get our text, what we want to do is we want to go to our operation tool, click the bubble that we're on, and we're going to change it depending on what text is in there. Now you'll notice that even though we're shrinking the size of the bubble, the text is staying exactly the same size. Okay, so I want this to have less white space in around the bubble, because you want to maximize as much of the art as possible. Okay, and when we do this, we can go ahead and like shape the bubble a little bit more. We can change our anchor points. Oops. And then from here, we also kind of just want to make sure that it's center aligned. It's kind of even on both sides here. There's about enough equal space on both sides. And that looks much better for your speech bubble. Say I want to add like another sentence here, like there's a pause in his speech, right? And then we can add another bubble to this. So we're going to go back to our Comics Bubble tool, and we're going to click Rounded Balloon, and we're just going to click and drag like that. Okay? And from there we can actually continue to add the text in and make it like center aligned just like we did. And we can add in, why are you here? Maybe ... I don't know. that's just, you know, making something up on the spot. And obviously, if you want to adjust the size of the text later on, you can always do that. Just be aware that you will have to readjust the size of your bubbles. So maybe I want to drop this down to like an 8 font or something. We think that looks better. So again, we'll just click on our font here and click and drag, and then maybe we'll drop this down to 8. But again, you'll have to resize with the operation tool your bubbles, okay? So for this one, we're going to drop it down, bring it around town. Okay, just like that, and that'll automatically adjust the size of your bubbles. Okay, and I think that looks decent. Okay, not the best. Like, I think this space right here is too close around it. So we'll go back to our bubble, make it a little bit wider, and that'll probably look a lot better. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, not anything too crazy. I'm noticing that the text right here is too far right, so I'm going to try and center that a little bit better. And we'll look again, and I think that looks a lot better. Okay, so you'll just go through adjusting. Be meticulous about your lettering because it's actually a bigger deal than you actually think it is. It really helps readability of the page. It helps the reader to move along the page a lot better. If your lettering is all messed up, the reader can get like physically tired from reading your comic, and it'll make it like a longer read, and it can make it a more frustrating read if your lettering is like off and it doesn't make it look as good. Okay, so just be careful about your lettering. Again, I'm not a professional letterer here for you guys. I don't letter comics professionally, but I also don't have the money to pay for a great letterer. Even there's so many in the industry that work and do an awesome job in comics. If you are a self-taught artist and you're an indie comic creator, this is how I letter comics. And this is what I would recommend people do. So I appreciate you guys sticking around for this tutorial. Hopefully this was helpful. If it was, drop a like, comment, just say I appreciate it, or whatever the case might be, or give me any tips or tricks that you might have in Clip Studio Paint for lettering comics, and we can share as a community. I appreciate it, guys. Y'all have a great day. Keep drawing comics. Love you too. Bye.